Maybe you find yourself overthinking every food choice. Or maybe you feel out of control sometimes around food. If this sounds relatable, you're not alone. It's common, especially in the dance world. And today, we're gonna unravel it together.
I'm Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of To The Point Nutrition. A dancer's performance is a direct result of hard work and motivation. So where does food fit into this? There's a lot of myths and a ton of antiquated ideals, and I'm here to dispel those.
Hi dancers, welcome back to Nutrition for Dancers with me, Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist. Today we are talking about a topic that can feel really overwhelming, food anxiety. It can show up in many ways. Maybe you find yourself overthinking every food choice. Maybe you feel anxious about an upcoming social situation like a cast party. Or maybe you feel out of control sometimes around food, making you overcompensate later on or feel like you're eating past fullness. If this sounds relatable, you're not alone. It's common, especially in the dance world. And today, we're gonna unravel it together. But before we dive in, be sure to subscribe so that you're first to know when I share new content. You can also find me on Instagram at To The Point Nutrition, where I share daily tips and advice, just like what we're gonna be covering today. But let's get into it. What is food anxiety? It's the stress, fear, or obsessive thinking that surrounds your eating and your food choices. It can look different for everyone. For some dancers, food anxiety shows up as constantly thinking about what you should or you shouldn't be eating, feeling almost paralyzed or very indecisive around your food decisions, avoiding certain foods completely, or feeling panicked when meals don't go as planned. Now for others, food anxiety might feel like the need to overly plan or control every single bite. It can feel like overwhelming guilt after eating foods that you or somebody else has deemed to be, and I quote, off limits. Food anxiety might show up as needing to avoid unfamiliar foods, especially those that you haven't made yourself. The common thread here, food is stressful, and it feels like it's a problem that constantly needs you to put effort into solving. But food isn't the issue here. The challenge is the anxiety that you feel. It's clouding your ability to really sustain a more supportive relationship with food. And unfortunately, the dance world can really exacerbate this. Because of dancer diet culture being so loud and so prevalent in our studios, many dancers feel an overwhelming pressure to eat perfectly and to look a certain way, to follow strict plans in order to get there. This pressure feeds that anxiety. How do we start moving past this? Well, first, we want to understand the very triggers that are causing us to feel anxious around food. A food anxiety trigger is anything that consistently brings up fear, stress, or avoidance when it comes to eating. Here are some common examples. Eating out at restaurants, being in a situation where food can't be planned, having foods like bread or pasta or desserts in your house, eating foods that you or someone else has maybe deemed to be bad or unhealthy, social events that center around food. All of these can spark food anxiety for dancers. Take some time and reflect. A journal can be really helpful for this. I want you to ask yourself, when do I feel most anxious around food? Are there certain places or people or types of food that brings on this anxiety more than others? Understanding your personal triggers, it's a great starting point. It helps you to figure out where you might need this support most, and ultimately, what situations you can gently start to challenge, and where you can practice these new strategies. Once you've identified those triggers, let's start to build a food neutral lens. This is going to be incredibly important during the process. Many dancers from our youngest of days are taught to categorize and moralize food. Good foods or clean, healthy foods versus bad or unhealthy foods, or maybe you've heard them as junk foods. This mindset keeps food anxiety alive and thriving, unfortunately, because you are constantly and even subconsciously policing yourself. When you label food as bad, you attach judgment and you attach guilt to it. When you label food as a cheat meal, junk food, you give that food unnecessary power over you. Food doesn't have to have a moral value. It's not bad or good. It's whatever works for you at that moment in time. And what works for you will be what nourishes you, what's accessible to you, what you enjoy, what you prefer. There's so many different factors that come into play when we're deciding what foods will be best to support us in any given moment. So instead of saying, I shouldn't be eating this, I was really bad today, or this food is terrible for me, practice saying, this is part of my fueling plan, this food satisfies me, and this food gives me comfort. That's okay. I'm not doing anything wrong. Now, I get it. If you are not ready to fully believe in these shifts just yet, simply start by noticing your thoughts around food. Pause and ask, am I assigning moral value on this food choice? Do I feel like I am being good because I'm eating the salad and avoiding the cookie? Or do I feel like I'm being bad because I'm finally giving into this craving and enjoying the brownie after a long dance day? What would it feel to start noticing food as being more neutral for you? So I'm not being good for having a salad. I'm having a salad because it feels refreshing. And it's something that I've wanted. It's something that I've been thinking about, and I'm adding all of these great additions like shredded cheese and croutons, nuts, a delicious dressing to help make it a more satisfying experience. Maybe it's, I'm gonna enjoy this brownie. I've had a long, tiring dance day, and I just need something to enjoy without much thought put into it. That's all it has to be to experience food through a neutral lens. Over time, these subtle shifts will help to rewire how you view food and how you talk to yourself about your meal choices. Another strategy for reducing the anxiety around food is to start reintroducing foods that you've either developed fears towards, or that you or somebody else or something you've read has deemed that food to be bad or off limits. This is a big one. It's gradual exposure to those very foods that you might be saying right now, no way, I can't trust myself around those foods because once I start, I'm never gonna stop. Sound familiar? Food anxiety makes you avoid certain foods, but the more you avoid them, the louder those thoughts become. The more you avoid them, the more likely you are to ultimately overdo it because you are entering that all or nothing mindset. This cycle continues to grow and snowball, and we've got to nip it in the butt sooner than later. So one of the most helpful ways to finally break that cycle is to gently start incorporating that very food that you feel like you can't trust yourself around. Start incorporating it into an otherwise balanced meal plan. So let's say you have been avoiding bagels. You feel like they are too, and I quote, carby. You feel like you can't enjoy a bagel without just wanting to have bagels all day, every day, because deep down it happens to be a food you enjoy. Exposure work doesn't mean that you are forcing yourself to eat a bagel for every single meal moving forward. It means that come tomorrow for lunch, you're going to incorporate a bagel as part of an otherwise balanced meal. Maybe you'll pair your bagel with some type of spread that will help to bring in some more protein to the mix, make a more balanced meal. So maybe you're going to enjoy your bagel with a tuna or a chicken salad. Maybe you're going to have cream cheese on your bagel. Go in for an option that you know is truly going to satisfy you, even if at first it feels very uncomfortable because you are breaking that fear that's developed over time. What's most important, what we're not doing, is exposing ourselves to that bagel and having that bagel be the only thing we're going to eat in the day. Because now it's turning into, and I quote, a cheat day situation. That is feeding the all or nothing mindset. That's where you're likely going to say, I need to get this in now. I need to get it in quick because I'm not going to allow myself to do this again anytime soon. But rather have your bagel be as part of an otherwise balanced day with more meals and more snacks. Maybe a few hours after that lunch, you're going to enjoy a trail mix. You're going to enjoy an otherwise maybe more comfortable snack that you feel you can incorporate. Slowly but surely, you're gaining more comfort with those foods that otherwise bring you anxiety. If ice cream feels scary, well, start with a small bowl with a friend. Or maybe you need to eat it in a setting that feels quieter and even more comfortable or safer. So perhaps dishing out a bowl of ice cream at home, but make it into a situation, engage in that exposure, but make sure it is part of an otherwise balanced meal or snack. So maybe you're going to enjoy that ice cream as an ice cream sundae, and you're going to top some chocolate chips in there, some crushed graham crackers, whatever you need to make it a more satisfying experience. The key here is repetition. The first few times, as I mentioned, it's likely to feel very scary, very uncomfortable. But with each exposure, that food anxiety will lessen. Now, this is also work that I highly encourage if you're struggling. You reach out to a registered dietitian nutritionist like myself, also a mental health therapist. Can be very helpful in this process. Most importantly is that support is helping to make this process feel manageable and accessible for you. And on that note, food anxiety is pretty heavy to carry on alone with. Building a support system can make all the difference. As I mentioned, this might look like connecting with a registered dietitian like myself, one that understands dancers and the unique pressures that dancers face is a bonus. It might look like finding a therapist who can help you unpack deeper fears that come alongside your food anxiety. Your support system can also include parents, trusted educators and friends, and even some online communities, like, for example, my program, The Healthy Dancer, can feel very helpful. When you have people that can help you validate these experiences, you will be more likely to move through them with ease rather than continued stress. So let's recap a bit, because experiencing food anxiety is not something that we can overcome overnight. It is something that often takes more support. And I also feel very confident that it's something you can do in order to flourish as a dancer. First and foremost, don't forget, identify those triggers. This will help you to understand patterns of when you feel most anxious around food. And just a little tip I find with many of the dancers I work with, when they are underfueling at their baseline, so not eating enough each day, this can unfortunately exacerbate that food anxiety. So building an adequate fueling plan, eating enough each day, eating multiple meals and snacks consistently will also help in the process as you are working through that anxiety. You also want to start building that food neutral lens. This is what will help to rewire some of those thoughts. And you can slowly and gradually start incorporating some of those foods that you feel most anxious about within an otherwise balanced meal and snack plan. Last, if any of these touch points feel extra challenging for you, that's when reaching out for support is encouraged. I know this can feel like a long road, but I've seen it firsthand. Dancers can move through that food anxiety to build lasting, supportive relationships with food. That looks like meals and snacks that feel easier, that don't feel stressful. That also looks like enjoying more fun foods like dessert, whatever it might be, without that wave of food guilt that often follows. It takes time, it takes patience, but it's very possible. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you're walking away with some strategies on how you can walk through and unravel your own food anxieties. Don't forget, hit subscribe so that you are first to know when I share new content. You can also find me over on Instagram, where I am sharing daily tips and advice to help dancers just like you in fueling for performance. I want you to focus less on food and more on your dancing. That's the goal here, but unfortunately, food anxiety makes that really difficult to do. So let's unravel it together so that you can thrive in the studio and out. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon.